Do I have to give up everyone? No, it's too tough, I can't do it. So the Guru doesn't say you must detach the mind from the world. He simply says you must attach the mind to God and Guru. Then we say, thank God, okay, I'll do that. But if you ask me to detach the mind, I can't. I start hyperventilating. I can't give up my world. So the brilliance of a Guru is that he says, just attach the mind to God and Guru. Detachment comes naturally. So do whatever you're doing in life, but add God to that dynamic. So we add Radharani. We already know how to breathe. It's a natural process. It became natural because we have been breathing for countless lives. So we became very good at it. Now we are so good at breathing that we don't notice we're breathing. There's no effort in it. We don't have to remind ourselves. We don't have to put a memo on the phone. Don't forget to breathe today. It's a natural process. So that's happening already. Why not add God to it? Why not add Radharani? We're not accustomed to doing that. So this is all about training the mind, training the mind. We become impatient and we think, why is nothing happening? Nothing's happening. I don't see any result of my sadhana. Fact is that we have committed uncountable offenses. We have thought uncountable worldly thoughts. So it will take some time. It will take some time to destroy those worldly thoughts, for bhakti to destroy those worldly thoughts. And we have to practice a lot of devotion. So we must never become despondent. We must never become discouraged. We must do what we are here to do, and that is to do bhakti, to do sadhana. We are here to practice devotion. The one and only aim in life, the loftiest aim in life is to know God so that we may love God, so that we may reach God, so that we may go to God. That's it. It's very simple. So every time we breathe, Sri Maharaj Ji says, just add Radharani to your breathing, to the process of breathing. You don't have to say it out loud, Radhe. Now I'm just breathing in and I'm saying Radhe, Ra, and then I breathe in. No, just in your mind. And the name of Radha is so powerful. Radha ra ke kahat hi nikasat sakal vikar. A Rasik saint has said, when you utter Ra, you're going to say Radha, but you just say Ra, and all the vices, they just leave you. They just come out of you. They're destroyed. Then a doubting Thomas asked, well, what if they come back? They leave and then they might come back. So the Rasik saint said, Puni avat pavat nahi. They cannot come back. But why? Dhakka det dhakar. Because now you're saying say dha, after you've said ra, all the vices have left. What if they come back? No. Next you're saying dha. When you say dha, that sound dha, it gives dhakka, it gives a push, and it pushes the vices out. Those vices cannot return. The name of Radha is extremely powerful. Why should we just meditate on the breath when we can add Radharani to each and every breath? What a wonderful method Sri Maharaj Ji has given to us. We should not think, oh, I know it. It's a simple thing. I know. Ra, De. But God is very simple. To reach God is very simple. The method has to be very simple. But we should not start thinking, our mind is a very doubting mind. We should not start thinking, oh, it's such a simple method. It's simplistic. No. It's a simple method, it's extremely simple method, and an extremely effective one. It's not simplistic, it is simple. So, Shwas jab khincho to Ra kahu. Every time you inhale, say Ra in your mind. And Shwas chodo to kahahu De. Every time you exhale, mentally say dhe all the while. Now the next point is dhyan bhi karu pyare. It's not enough to just say ra, dhe, but do roop dhyan of Radharani. That is essential. A lot of people, I've met a lot of people who say, well, I just meditate on the name Ram. So I visualize, in Hindi, Ra, then A ki matra, Ma. So I just meditate on the Ram. We can't get anything out of meditating on a name, although it's a name of God. But our mind does not fall in love with just the letters that they go into making the name Ram. We need to, as we chant Ram, we need to meditate on Ram. We need to do Roop Dhyan of Ram. As we say Radhe, we need to do Roop Dhyan of Radharani, our Divine Mother, our Swamini, our Sakhi, our Mother. So we need to do Dhyan. We must never forget that Dhyan, meditation on God, Roop Dhyan, is the only devotion. Everything else that we hear about, everything else that we are doing is just a helpful tool in that Roop Dhyan. So we are doing Kirtan to enhance our Roop Dhyan. We're listening to lectures so that our Roop Dhyan may be enhanced. We're listening to a guided meditation so that we may actually start doing Roop Dhyan for ourselves. So that would help us. So it's not enough to just mentally recite the name Radhe. We must meditate at the same time. Simultaneously, we must do Roop Dhyan of Radha Rani. Because Dhyan is the one and only devotion. Everything else is a helpful tool. It's a helping hand then. Whether it's jap, tap, niyam, bathing in the Ganga Ji, and whatever it may be, observing a fast, whatever else there is, kirtan, bhajan, all these are helpers in doing Roop Dhyan. So Shri Maharaj Ji highlights that. Dhyan bhi karu pyare. Dear disciple, meditate on Radharani at the same time. Let's continue. जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ, बोलिए सब लोग, everyone please sing. करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, chorus mic. द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे। जग में कतहूँ राग जनि करूँ, द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे द्वेष जनि करो प्यारे जग में कतहूँ राग करूँ राग जनि करूँ द्वेष जनि करूँ प्यारे. Do not love the world and do not hate the world. There are some ailments, 5 ailments to be precise, that are afflicting the intellect. बुद्धि में 5 रोग लगे हुए हैं, उनको पंचक्लेश नाम से पुकारा है शास्त्रों ने. These 5 ailments, 5 sicknesses, illnesses, maladies, use whatever name you will, that torment our intellect are rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, avidya, and asmita. The first 2 are rag and dvesh. Oftentimes they are put together, ragadvesh. We talk about ragadvesh, rag plus dvesh. So rag means attachment with feelings of love and adoration. Attachment. It's attachment with feelings of love. Now, you may ask, well, what other kind of attachment is there? It's redundant, isn't it, to say that attachment with feelings of love? No, actually, there is another type of attachment, and that is with feelings of hatred. Hatred and fear. And when we look at the Avatar Kal, we look at the time when Bhagwan Shri Krishna was here on earth, then we can find examples of rag and dvesh towards him. The gopis were attached to Shri Krishna, their minds were attached to Shri Krishna with feelings of love. They adored Kanhaiya, they adored Shyam Sundar. Yadohane vahanane mathano pale paprengkheng khanar bharudito kshanamar गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्त धियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या ब्रजस्त्रिय उरुक्रमचित्त यानाः. In the 10th canto of the Bhagavad, we find these words in which Vedavyasji is saying that the gopis were always thinking about Shri Krishna. Whether the gopi was cleaning the house or cooking for her family, whether she was pacifying her crying child or putting him to sleep, whether she was pounding the rice or fetching water from the Yamuna river for daily usage, the gopi was always thinking very affectionately about Shri Krishna. So she was attached to Shri Krishna, extremely attached to him, with feelings of love. And at the same time, there was Kans, the maternal uncle of Shri Krishna, Kans Mama, who gave all the mamas a bad name. Mother's brother, Mama, he was Kans Mama, very, very mean. He was after Shri Krishna's life because he thought that Shri Krishna was after his life. He knew that he would be killed by Shri Krishna, so he had a lot of hatred for Shri Krishna and he feared Shri Krishna greatly. Now, the Bhagavad says about him also that he was also thinking about Shri Krishna all the time, just like the gopis were. The difference was that while they were thinking of him lovingly, Kans was thinking of him with fear, and he had feelings of hatred and fear towards Shri Krishna. So much fear, and he had so much fear for Shri Krishna. He feared him so much, and he was thinking about him all the time. So consequently, he saw Shri Krishna in his servants. They would be in front of him, they would come before him to serve him, and he would go hide in a closet. Because he was thinking, how did he come? How did Krishna come over here? He's going to kill me. He would scream and run away and hide. And his servants would be baffled. Maharaj, we are here to serve you. They couldn't understand what was going on. They would be bringing him food to eat, and he would throw the food away. He would throw the platter away because he would see Shri Krishna in his food. That attachment, we've never heard of that. It's unheard of. He was absolutely attached, fully attached to Shri Krishna. He was thinking about Shri Krishna day and night, night and day. He would tear his own clothes because his servants would bring him his garments royal garments to wear. But he would, again, scream with fear because he would see Sri Krishna in his clothes. So Kansa's mind was attached to Sri Krishna with feelings of fear and hatred. But the end result was the same for the gopis and for Kans. They all attained, Kans attained Sri Krishna just as the gopis did. He went to the divine abode just as the gopis did. Because attachment, whether it's attachment to the world or attachment to God, either type of attachment yields, both types of attachment yield the same result. This is very important for us to know. Please pay attention to this. Because what this means is, whether we are attached to the material world with feelings of love or hatred, we will end up with the world. We'll end up coming right here. We will end up attaining the one whom we hate and whom we fear, whom we are attached to, whether it's with feelings of fear and hatred or with love. Attachment is like a coin. You know, we toss a coin and we say heads or tails. So one part is head, the other is the tail. That means that one part, one side of the coin called attachment is called love. The other side is called hatred. It's dangerous to love the material world, but it's just as dangerous to hate it. This is why Vishnu Puran says, Tasmat dukkhatmakam nasti naiva kinchit sukhatmakam. There is no happiness in the world and there is no sorrow in the world. So do not love the world and do not hate the world. If the mind that's loving God should be asked, why do you love the world? Why do I love the world? Because there's happiness here. Is there? There's no happiness here. Jag maha sukh dukh do nahi as ur dhari le gyan sukh mane dukh milat hai sukh na jagat mahajan man. In Bhakti Shatak, Jagatguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj says, the world has neither happiness nor sorrow for anyone. But if you think there is happiness in the world, you will definitely experience unhappiness. Kabir Das Ji says, Kabira khada bazar mein sabki mangat khair na kahu so dosti na kahu so bair. He regards the world as a marketplace. He says the world is a marketplace, it's a bazaar. And you go to the bazaar, you go to the marketplace, you go to the mall, and you see people, or you even say hello to strangers, you say hello to your friends that you meet over there, your acquaintances, even strangers. But you don't form any attachments. You say hello. It's part of the culture, American culture. Hey, how are you doing? And who is he to you that you're asking him? I don't know. Kaun hai? Mausa, Tau? Kaun hai? Mausi, Mami, Mama? Kaun hai ye? Nobody. Then why are you asking? How are you? This American custom is really surprising to a lot of people living in Europe. I found that out when I heard a bus driver. He was a tourist bus driver somewhere in Europe, and he was just so funny. He was like a stand-up comic, although he was driving the bus. And he said, you know, in America they say, how are you? And I'm thinking, why do you care? Do you care? So it's built into the culture. But you don't form any attachments. You don't say, oh, if you say, hey, how are you doing? And the other person starts wailing and just wants a shoulder to cry on, you go, get out of here. I don't care how you're doing. A new immigrant from India told me, he said that, you know, when he came to America, he thought everybody was so caring because everywhere he'd go, hey, they'll say, how are you doing? And he was so happy to hear that. So when somebody asked him, you know, after a couple of times, he said, I should tell them how I'm doing. How are you doing? He said, I'm not doing so well. I'm missing my country. I'm missing my family. And he said, the person I said this to just looked at me like, are you all right? Then he said he realized that people don't really want to know how you're doing. It's just a habit. So when you go to the marketplace, you meet a lot of people, but you say hello and goodbye. You don't form attachments that this world is like a marketplace. And then we say, well, yes, in the world, there's more than 7 billion people, 7.5 billion people living here, and I really don't care for them. But I care for my family members, the 5, 10 people. No, they're part of the marketplace too. Remain detached. Do your duty, but do not form attachments. Because you see, it's not difficult to detach the mind from 7.5 billion people, but it's from those 5, 10 people, those are the challenge for us. And if there's any attachment in the mind for the world, then in the same mind, there's no place for God. There's no place, because the mind is filled with attachments for those 5, 10 people, those family members, our loved ones, our own, we call them our own, my own people, my own family, my flesh and blood. This is me, and this is my family. These are my very own. Those are the difficult ones. The whole world, that's not a challenge, just those very few people. So do not love the world. Do your duty towards family, but reserve the love only for God. And do not hate anyone, because when you ask the mind, why do I hate this person? Because he just gives me so much misery. He makes me miserable. He makes me feel so unhappy. No, he doesn't. He doesn't make you feel unhappy. Oh, there's nothing but sorrow. He's a source of sorrow and unhappiness for me. No, he's not. No one in the world is a source of happiness or unhappiness. You're saying that this man is a source of unhappiness to you? There are so many other people who say, no, he's a source of happiness. And then there's most people in the world, they'll say there's no happiness in him and there's no unhappiness in him. If he was a source of misery, then everybody in the world would say he's a source of misery. They would agree. And about the loved one, you say, oh, he gives me so much, my son gives me so much happiness. He's a source of happiness. He's not. Because if he were truly a source of happiness, he would be giving happiness to each and every person in the world. And that's not so. There's not a single person in the world who makes everybody in the world happy, and there's not a single person in the world who makes everybody in the world unhappy. So there's no happiness or unhappiness in the world. Then what is that feeling of happiness that I'm getting? That's just imaginary happiness perceived by the mind. Like a dog chewing on a dry bone is tasting its own blood. The dog is chewing on a dry bone. It has no flesh on it, no blood on it. The dog is chewing on it. So that chewing, that action of chewing, causes the dog's throat to bleed. The dog is tasting its own blood. But the foolish dog thinks, oh my, what a juicy bone this is. The bone is not juicy. You're drinking your own blood, sucking your own blood. That your throat is bleeding. But that's a dog. The dog cannot understand this. Or a camel. A camel cannot understand. A camel chews on thorny leaves growing in the desert. And those thorny leaves cause the camel's throat to bleed. Just like the dog, the camel thinks about the leaves. Oh my, how juicy these leaves are. They're not. You're tasting your own blood. But that's a camel and that's a dog. These are creatures who are not capable of understanding this, that they're sucking their own blood. But we humans, we have been given so much knowledge. We have been given a far more advanced mind. We can surely understand that when we are perceiving someone to be a source of happiness, that's an imagination. It's the imagination of the mind. Because the same person, we have to ask, why does the same person sometimes feel like a source of happiness to me, and at other times feels like a source of utmost misery? Sometimes I want to embrace my child so lovingly Sometimes I want to just strangle her. Why both the feelings? Because there's no happiness or unhappiness in that child. That's why. Why do feelings change? Why do our sentiments change towards someone? Why do people say, I used to love her, but now I don't? What happened? Did she change? She's the same person. But your mind was thinking earlier that this one, this person, this woman is a source of happiness. She'll make me so happy. And now the mind is thinking, no, I'm happier somewhere else. This one is not making me happy. I want a divorce. It's all imagination of the mind. It's not real. It's not real. Therefore, we must not encourage our mind by becoming attached to the world. We must understand this. Sri Maharaj Ji often used to say, you're a human. You're capable of understanding this. So, after all, he used to say, after all, you're a human. Aakhir manushya ho, socho. He said that many times. After all, you're a human. Think about this. Does this make any sense to you? Does it make any sense to you that you're so attached to the world and you're forming attachments here? We were not given this human form of life. We were not born as humans to become enamored with the world. We were here to rectify our pitiable condition. Pitiable condition is that our mind is already filled with worldly attachments. We're not here to fill it even more. We're here to fill that mind with love for God so that at least there'll be a balance. Yes, there's a love for God, but there's love for the world, but there's also now love for God. That balance at least should be struck. This is why Sri Maharaj Ji says, do not love the world, do not be attached to the world with feelings of love or hatred. When it comes to God, and I was mentioning the gopis and Kans, someone may think, well, can I become attached to God with feelings of hatred? That's another way of attaching the mind to Him. It is done, but only by saints who are playing the part of villains, like Ravan, like Kans. And they have the same power as God. We are nowhere near God when it comes to powers. We don't have tiny fraction of the powers that God has, and whatever we do have is a gift from Him. So we cannot even think of attaching our mind to God with feelings of hatred. Only a saint, disguised as a villain, like Kans or Ravan, can do this. And also, it has to be during his avatar kal. It has to be when God descends to earth. Otherwise, it's not possible. So for us, we must understand that our mind should be attached to God with feelings of love and adoration. We should learn a lesson from the gopis, because that's how they were attaching their minds to Sri Krishna. We'll continue. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu pyare. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu pyare. Sadhana karu pyare.
Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu pyare. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu pyare. Sadhana karu pyare.
मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे। मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे।
मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे। मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे।
मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे। मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे।
मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे। मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे, सुनहु जनि कछु प्यारे।
मन को मानो शत्रु. Regard your mind to be your enemy. Uski sunahu jani kachu pyare. Do not listen to anything it says. We are very accustomed to accepting whatever the mind says. We are accustomed to obeying the commands of the mind. The mind says, go to sleep, we go to sleep. The mind says, stay up, play cards, watch movies, play video games, whatever it may be, watch TV, watch this, do that, and stay up all night. You say, yes, sir, I'll do that. The mind says, don't get up till noontime. Okay? I won't. So our mind has become our master. Actually, our mind should be our servant. Mind is a terrible master, but a beautiful servant. Again, our mission is to control our mind. Remember, it's all about the mind. So the merciful Guru tells the disciple, tells the sadhak, listen, be on the lookout. Your mind will try to deceive you, because that's what it always does. And the mind is a very effective enemy, because it pretends to be a very good friend. There's a very famous book called The Art of War, ancient book, very old book. And one of the things, this is how you deal with your enemy. You pretend to be a friend. People and nations, they send spies over. So those spies, they mingle with the enemy. So the mind is like that. It's our own mind, but it's our enemy, because it deceives us, and it's such a sweet enemy. You can't figure out that this mind is an enemy. It is. We listen to our mind and we start going further and further away from God. And we start listening to the Guru and we think to yourself, I will do sadhana, I should practice devotion. And the mind comes up and says, do it tomorrow. No, I got to do it now. My Guru says, do it now. You're too tired. You're too tired. You can't do it. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow will come, you do it then. And then the mind says something else again. You're too busy. You're too tired. You're too busy. You have too many obligations. You can't afford this sadhana thing. You can't afford this luxury called sadhana. You can't be doing sadhana. And years pass, lifetimes pass, and our mind is telling us this, and we keep listening to the mind. So the Guru says, don't listen to your mind. If it was a good mind, if it was a very balanced mind, then you could have listened to it. It's a spoiled mind. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to what it says. And that's such a difficult thing to do, isn't it? It's such a difficult thing to do. We've had examples of meditators who were able to construct a new Swargalok. Like Vishwamitra. He constructed a Swargalok, a new Swarg for King Trishanku. But he could not control his mind. Trishanku was a king, and he approached sage Vashisht and said, Maharaj, I would like to go to Swargalok. Vashisht said, when you die, you'll go to Swargalok, not now. And so he did not comply with the wishes of the king. The king went to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra heard the story, and he said, go to his sons and ask them to build one for you. Ask them to send you to Swarg. So he went to Vashisht's sons, and Vashisht found out, and he said, what an insolent king this is. I told him no, and now he's going to my sons with the same request. So the sons refused. He went back to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra says, never mind, I shall build you another Swarg. So he built another Swarg. He had such powers. And he sent Trishanku up. He was sending him up, ascend to Swargalok. And Vashishta Muni sent him down. Vishwamitra was sending him up. Trishanku was going up to Swarg. And Vashishta said, you're not eligible. So he's sending him down. So Trishanku was left hanging in the middle, between heaven and earth. So Vishwamitra had the power of yoga, power of his meditation, also to build another Swarg, but he could not control his mind. He wanted to defeat Vashisht, and every time he had to accept defeat before Vashisht. So he said, oh, Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. I keep losing, he keeps winning, because he's a Brahman, I'm a Kshatriya. So he decided to kill Vashisht. He hid outside in the middle of the night. He hid outside of Vashishta's cottage, and he knew that they were still, Vashishta and his wife were still awake. He could hear them talking, and he could hear the conversation. Vashishta's wife is Arundhati. Arundhati was asking her husband. She was asking Patidev, dear husband, who is the greatest meditator of this time? And Vashishta said, it is Vishwamitra, Arundhati. Vishwamitra is the topmost. The only thing is, he has too much anger inside of him. He has not controlled his mind. And Vishwamitra heard this. He heard his enemy praising him, and he thought, how fallen I am. I've got a weapon, I've got an axe in my hand to slaughter Vashisht, and if need be, his wife. And this same Vashisht, he's praising me. How fallen I am. And he became so contrite that he barged into the cottage, and he fell at the feet of Vashisht. And Vashisht was shocked. What are you doing here? What's this axe doing in your hand? And Vishwamitra told him the whole sordid story. I had come here to kill you. That's what the axe is here for. And I have my mind is so spoiled. I don't have any control over my mind. You're right, I have too much anger inside. And please accept me as your disciple. I need your guidance. So Vishwamitra accepted Vashisht as his guru, and then learned to control his mind, because it's only through the guru that one can learn how to control the mind. It cannot happen any other way. The mind, what I'm trying to say is that the mind is so powerful that even the great ones like Vishwamitra are tormented by it. He could not control his mind. Not without the grace of his guru, Vashishta. So who are we then? No, हिंदी में बोलते हैं हम किस खेत की मूली हैं? हमारी हैसियत क्या है? Who are we? In comparison with Vishwamitra, who are we? We have no powers whatsoever. So we should not trust the mind. This is why it is advised for a seeker to connect the mind and the buddhi, mind and the intellect, man and buddhi, to the man and buddhi of his guru. In other words, do as the Guru says. That's it. It's so easy now. I don't know what to do. Is my mind deceiving me? Well, what does the Guru say? He says, do this. What is your mind saying? My mind says, do that. No, well, listen to your Guru then. It's easy now. Connect your mind to the Guru. The Guru will give the right judgment. The Guru will give the right decision. The Guru will give the right advice. The mind is giving bad advice to us all the time. I ask all of you sitting here, has your mind ever told you, how often has your mind told you, you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but just think about it, how often does your mind tell you that you are wrong? How often does our mind tell us, look, I'm wrong? No. The mind always says, these people are all wrong. The family members are wrong. I'm right. Our mind doesn't tell us that we are at fault. We come highly recommended by our own mind. The mind says, you're good, you're godly, you're so wonderful. It's just these other people, they're just not good. This whole bunch, they're just bad, rotten to the core. But you're a gem. You're like a lotus flower growing in the midst of this very dirty atmosphere in this world. But the rest of them, they're just stuck in this mud and mire of this world. Our mind just recommends us so highly. Our mind praises us. And the biggest mistake we make is to trust our mind. If we trust our mind, because think about it, because of trusting our mind, we have not done enough sadhana. Because of trusting the mind, we have not done enough seva. Because of trusting the mind, we sleep too much, we eat too much, we do all the wrong things, too much of the wrong thing and not enough of the right thing. And then the mind makes up so many excuses. Our mind it's just amazing. It should win award after award for making excuses. It has such amazing excuses. So inventive. It makes up so many excuses and such genuine, and the excuses sound so genuine, don't they? So if we want to improve, if we want to make progress on the path of devotion, we must stop listening to our mind. We must listen to the instructions of God and Gurudev. This is what Sri Maharaj Ji is saying. And we'll leave the rest till tomorrow, but we'll conclude with Sadhana Garu. Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu, Pyare. Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu, Pyare. Sadhana Karu, Pyare.
Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. Sadhana karu, pyare.
Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. Sadhana karu, pyare.
Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. Sadhana karu, sadhana karu, sadhana karu, pyare. साधना करो प्यारे।
बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जय। श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जय। जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।